Imagine being stranded alone on a life raft in the Atlantic Ocean for 8 days. Your boat has sunk. Your mother has vanished. When rescuers finally find you 100 miles from where you claim the accident happened, they ask, "Where's your mom?" But here's the thing. Investigators don't believe your boat sank by accident. They think you killed your mother for money. And 3 years earlier, your wealthy grandfather was shot in the head while he slept. This is the twisted story of Nathan Carman, the deaths that followed him, and the secrets he may have taken to his grave. John Chakalos wasn't just wealthy, he was Connecticut royalty. The 87-year-old real estate developer had built an empire worth $43 million by constructing and renting nursing homes across New England. He had 4 daughters, but when his first male grandson was born, everything changed. Nathan Carman was special. Despite his struggles with Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism that made social interactions difficult, his grandfather adored him. While Nathan's loneliness and difficulty connecting with others worried his family, John Chakalos saw potential. He invested in his grandson's future, putting $550,000 into Nathan's bank accounts between 2012 and 2013. But John Chakalos would never see how that investment turned out. On December 20th, 2013, the 87-year-old was found dead in his Windsor, Connecticut home. He'd been shot multiple times in the back of the head at close range while he slept. The killer had come in the night, executed him with precision, and disappeared. Nathan was the last person to see his grandfather alive. They'd had dinner together the night before. Windsor police immediately focused on Nathan Carman. During their investigation, they discovered disturbing details that painted a picture far different from the shy, socially awkward young man his family knew. Investigators learned that Nathan had purchased a Sig Sauer rifle using a New Hampshire license, despite living in Connecticut. He'd turned off his cell phone during the time his grandfather was killed, making his movements untraceable. When police searched Nathan's Middletown apartment in July 2014, they found a tactical shotgun, over 100 shotgun shells, a rifle scope, and something even more chilling: handwritten notes on making self-propelled, improvised explosive devices. Family members told investigators that Nathan had once held another child hostage with a knife when he was younger. Several people, including neighbors and family members, expressed fear of him. Some had even hired armed private security to protect them in their homes. But without definitive proof, authorities couldn't get an arrest warrant. The case went cold. Meanwhile, Nathan Carman had inherited $550,000 from his grandfather's bank accounts. He moved from Connecticut to Vermont, where he bought a house and, notably, a 31-foot fishing boat that he named the Chicken Pox. Linda Carman, Nathan's mother, was in an impossible position. She loved her son, but she also knew something was terribly wrong. In 2013, 3 months before her father was murdered, Linda made a decisive change to her will. She intentionally omitted Nathan, leaving everything to her 3 sisters and her beloved horse, Sophie Bell. But despite her fears, Linda couldn't completely cut ties with her son. Spending time on his boat was her primary way of interacting with him. It was their connection, their shared activity, the one thing they could still do together. By 2016, federal prosecutors would later allege Nathan had spent most of the $550,000 inheritance. He was low on funds and mostly unemployed. The $7 million his mother stood to inherit from the Chakalos estate would change everything, if only he could access it. On September 17, 2016, Linda Carman arrived at her son's Vermont home after 11 p.m. Nathan had proposed a fishing trip. Linda told her close friend Sharon Hartstein they'd be going about 20 miles offshore to a spot called Striper Rock near Block Island. She believed she'd be home by noon the next day. But Nathan had told others something different. He mentioned going to the canyons, approximately 100 miles offshore. Witnesses at Ram Point Marina in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, noticed troubling details before the chickenpox departed. Mike Iozzi, 71, struck up a conversation with Nathan and observed that the trim tabs, safety devices that help boats maintain stability, had been removed from the boat. When Iozzi asked about fishing poles, Nathan gave no answer. He hadn't seen any fishing equipment on the boat at all. More alarmingly, Nathan had left a bucket of eels, common fishing bait, in his car at the marina. If they were going fishing, why didn't he bring the bait? The marina manager, Don Vivencio, knew the chickenpox well. It had been on and off at the repair yard with many issues, including problems with the newly installed motor, air getting into the fuel lines, and a faulty bilge pump. Nathan had said he would fix the issues himself. Vivenzio was never sure if he did, but the most damning evidence came later. Nathan had recently modified the boat by removing 2 forward bulkheads and removing the trim tabs from the transom, changes that would make the vessel more likely to sink. The chickenpox never returned to port. On September 18, 2016, when the boat failed to return, the U.S. Coast Guard launched a massive search and rescue operation. They scoured 64,000 square nautical miles of the Atlantic Ocean. There was no Mayday call, no radio transmission, no emergency beacon activated, nothing. On September 25th, 8 days after they'd set sail, a Chinese freighter named the Orient Lucky spotted something bobbing in the water about 100 miles south of Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. An inflatable life raft with a lone occupant. Nathan Carman had survived. His mother had not. Coast Guard audio recordings captured Nathan's explanation. "Mom and I were fishing on Block Canyon. There was a funny noise in the engine compartment. I looked and saw a lot of water. I had my mom bring in the reel. I brought the safety stuff forward. I was bringing one of the safety bags forward, and the boat dropped out from under my feet. When I saw the life raft, I did not see my mom." He claimed the boat sank so quickly, bow first, that there was no time to radio for help, give his mother a life jacket, or even exchange words about what was happening. But experts immediately spotted problems with his story. David Farrell, a maritime lawyer who would later interview Nathan for hours during an insurance investigation, called the story absolutely ludicrous. A 31-foot boat of that particular design would sink stern first, not bow first, and would take time. Enough time for a mother and son to discuss what was happening. Oceanographer Richard Limeburner analyzed the ocean currents. Based on the data, Nathan's life raft should have drifted west from where he claimed the boat sank. Nathan claimed he drifted eastward. Limeburner testified that did not make any sense. Coast Guard Petty Officer Nicole Grohl was more direct. He said his boat sunk off Block Canyon, and we scoured 62,000 nautical miles of sea. He was found in the search area, but his story doesn't add up. Farrell developed a theory. Nathan had operated the boat for several days after the sinking, waiting until the Coast Guard called off the search, then snuck it up to align with the course of an oncoming ship before sinking it and jumping into the life raft. The physics made it impossible that he drifted naturally to where he was found. "It didn't happen," Farrell said. "It is impossible. Every single one of those days he said he was drifting at sea was a lie." Nathan Carman made what many consider a fatal mistake. He filed an $85,000 insurance claim for the lost chickenpox. One of the stupidest things he ever did was make an insurance claim, Farrell said. I think he would have gotten away with it. The insurance companies refused to pay and sued. During the civil trial in August 2019, evidence mounted. Federal Judge John McConnell ruled that Nathan had made improper repairs to the boat shortly before the trip, and that it is more likely than not that this improper repair at least indirectly caused water to fill up the bilge, causing the boat to sink. The judge ruled in favor of the insurance companies, though he stopped short of determining whether Nathan had intentionally sunk the boat or killed his mother. Meanwhile, Nathan's 3 aunts filed a slayer petition in New Hampshire probate court, trying to prevent him from inheriting Linda's 1/4 share of the $43 million Chakalos estate. They argued he'd killed both his grandfather and his mother to get the money. Nathan fought back. Acting as his own attorney, he grilled his aunts for 4 hours in probate court, arguing he needed access to a trust fund his grandfather had set up to pay his legal fees. For years, Nathan Carman maintained his innocence. He insisted the boat sinking was an accident. He denied any involvement in his grandfather's death. He lived quietly in Vermont, using what remained of his inheritance money. Then, on May 10, 2022, nearly 6 years after Linda Carman disappeared, a Vermont grand jury indicted Nathan on 8 counts: murder on the high seas, multiple counts of fraud, allegations, though not charges, connecting him to his grandfather's murder. The indictment laid out the prosecution's theory. Nathan had killed his grandfather in 2013 for the $550,000. When that money ran out, he lured his mother onto a boat he deliberately sabotaged, killed her at sea, and staged the sinking to inherit her $7 million share of the estate. Nathan pleaded not guilty. His trial was set for October 2023. He would never make it to court. On June 15, 2023, at approximately 2:24 a.m., a corrections officer at the Cheshire County Jail in Keene, New Hampshire, completed a routine check of cell D204. Shining a flashlight through the small window, the officer saw something wrong and immediately entered. Nathan Carman, 29 years old, was found unconscious and not breathing. He was alone in his cell. Corrections officers and first responders performed CPR for 40 minutes. Nathan was pronounced dead at 3:18 a.m. The New Hampshire Attorney General's office issued a brief statement. An autopsy has been performed, and the death is not considered suspicious. Sources close to the investigation confirmed what many suspected. Nathan had died by suicide, likely by hanging. His lawyers were shocked. Martin Manella said Nathan had been in good spirits and was actively working on his defense. David Sullivan had spoken with Nathan for an hour the night before his death and had no inkling whatsoever that his client was depressed or suicidal. His last words to Nathan were, "Okay, my friend, sleep well." Some believed Nathan left a suicide note. His lawyer, David Sullivan, clarified, "We believe Mr. Carman left us a note that we look forward to receiving to make sense of a very tragic situation." Later reports indicated the note was actually a message to his lawyers to follow up on a lead for his defense, not a confession or goodbye letter. Nathan Carman's death meant the case would never go to trial. The U.S. Attorney in Vermont dismissed all charges. In the eyes of the law, Nathan died with the presumption of innocence intact. But for those who investigated the case, justice had been denied. There were too many inconsistencies, said Special Agent Eric Gemp. There were too many things that just didn't add up. David Farrell, who interviewed Nathan extensively, believes the evidence was overwhelming. I really don't think there is that reasonable doubt, he told reporters. Yet without a trial, the public never got to see all the evidence that had been assembled. True crime author Casey Sherman, who wrote a book about the case titled Blood in the Water, had a different perspective. I do not think there was going to be enough evidence to convict him, Sherman said. This was a no-body case. Everything was circumstantial when it came to his mother's disappearance. Sherman found the circumstances of Nathan's death mysterious. The media immediately claimed that Nathan had left a suicide note behind, which was false, he said. He was only 3 to 4 months away from his trial, and there was a strong likelihood that he would have been acquitted. Some people, Sherman noted, don't believe Nathan took his own life at all. In October 2023, 4 months after Nathan's death, Middletown probate judge Joseph Marino officially declared Linda Carman dead. 7 years had passed since she disappeared, the legal requirement in Connecticut for declaring someone dead without a body. Her estate, worth more than $2 million, was distributed to her 3 sisters as specified in her will, the will that intentionally omitted Nathan. But the Chakalos fortune remains in dispute. At the time of his death, Nathan's aunts were still legally challenging his inheritance claims. That matter remains unresolved. John Chakalos's murder in 2013 remains officially unsolved. Windsor police continue to maintain a cold case file. Linda Carman's body has never been found. The chickenpox was never recovered from the ocean floor. And Nathan Carman, who may have taken the truth to his grave, left behind only questions. Did he kill his grandfather for money? Did he sabotage his boat and murder his mother at sea? Or was he a socially awkward young man with autism, wrongly suspected of crimes he didn't commit, who ultimately took his own life under the crushing weight of false accusations? What is certain is that the Chakalos family, once bound by wealth and blood, was utterly destroyed. John Chakalos, the patriarch who built an empire, dead. Linda Carman, the devoted mother caught between love for her son and fear of what he might be, gone. Nathan Carman, the troubled grandson who either murdered for millions or was falsely accused, dead in a jail cell. And 3 sisters, mourning their father and sister, left to wonder if their nephew was a killer or a victim himself. Chuck LaPena, Linda's cousin, remembered his reaction when he first heard about the fishing trip. I told her not to go on that boat, he said. But Linda had gone, because despite everything, despite the suspicions about her father's death, despite removing Nathan from her will, despite her fears, she couldn't abandon her son completely. That love may have cost Linda Carman her life, or perhaps she died in a tragic accident, and her son spent the last 3 years of his life falsely accused before taking his own life in despair. We'll never know for certain. The secrets of what really happened on the chickenpox on September 18, 2016, remain at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, along with Linda Carman's body and the truth. If you like the story, I'd be forever grateful if you gently tap the like and subscribe button and the bell for notifications.